April 15, 1943, 23,000 feet over Germany. Captain Walker Mahurin is about to discover that everything the experts told him about his aircraft was wrong. In 3 seconds, his P-47 Thunderbolt fires 320 rounds. The Messerschmitt in his sights doesn't stand a chance. But 6 months earlier, Mahurin's own commanders told him this plane would get him killed. They called it the flying milk jug. Too heavy, too slow. A joke. By war's end, the joke had destroyed nearly 12,000 enemy aircraft. This is the story of how the most ridiculed fighter of World War II became the most deadly. 1942. The Luftwaffe owned the skies over Europe. For 3 years, German fighters had outmaneuvered, outgunned, and outfought everything the Allies could send against them. Dr. Richard Overy, military historian, Cambridge. By late 1942, the Luftwaffe was at its peak. Their pilots had years of combat experience. Their tactics were refined. Their aircraft were excellent. The Americans were about to enter a fight they were completely unprepared for. American bomber crews called it flying through hell. Without fighter escort deep into Germany, they were sitting ducks. The 8th Air Force was bleeding. Colonel Rhett, John Luckadoo, B-17 pilot, 100th Bomb Group, real survivor. We needed fighters that could stay with us all the way to target. The P-38s and Spitfires, they'd have to turn back. You'd see the German fighters forming up, and you knew some of us aren't coming home today. The Pentagon was desperate. They needed a fighter with 3 things: range to reach Berlin, firepower to kill German fighters, and toughness to bring pilots home. What they got looked like a joke. Alexander Kartveli didn't care what it looked like. The Georgian-born engineer had a radical vision: build a fighter around the most powerful engine in existence, armor it like a tank, and arm it like a battleship. Joshua Stoff, aviation engineer and author, Republic's Thunderbolt. Kartveli's design was revolutionary and insane in equal measure. The R2800 engine, 2,000 horsepower, that's twice what a Spitfire had. But it was massive. The whole aircraft had to be built around this enormous power plant. Every other designer said it couldn't work as a fighter. Too heavy. The laws of physics, they said. It was twice the weight of its enemies, and that terrified the pilots who would have to fly it. January 1943. The 56th Fighter Group arrived in England expecting to fly P-38 Lightnings, sleek, twin-engine fighters they'd trained on. Instead, waiting on the frozen runway were 30 P-47 Thunderbolts. Robert S.S.1. Johnson, archival audio, recorded 1989. We couldn't believe it. This truck, this beast, we called it the Jugs, short for Juggernaut. Some guy said it looked like a milk bottle with wings. This thing was supposed to dogfight Messerschmitts. We thought they'd sent us to die. Colonel Hubert Hub Zemke had a problem. He commanded the 56th Fighter Group, Zemke's wolf pack, but his wolves didn't trust their new teeth. Jerry Scutts, aviation historian and 56th FG specialist, Zemke himself had serious doubts. In his diary, he wrote, "The P-47 is too heavy to dogfight, too slow to catch anything, and too big to miss." But he was also a pragmatist. This was the plane they had, so he'd have to figure out how to use it, or watch his boys die trying. Across the channel, German pilots were waiting. The Expertine, elite aces with hundreds of kills between them. They'd seen every Allied fighter. None had survived their tactics. Dr. Colin Heaton, aviation historian, interviewed 100-plus German WWII pilots. The Luftwaffe pilots had immense confidence in 1943. They'd been fighting for years. They knew every Allied aircraft's weakness. Spitfire, beautiful but short range. P-38, fast but fragile engines. They were curious about this new American fighter, but mostly they were amused. When German intelligence delivered their assessment of the P-47, pilots read it and laughed. One ace, Hauptmann Egon Mayer, supposedly said, "The Americans have sent us flying barrels. This will be easy." April 8, 1943. The 56th Fighter Group would fly their first combat mission in the P-47. Their orders: escort bombers to the Dutch coast, engage any German fighters. Simple. Except nothing in war is simple. Walker, Bud, Mahurin. Archival audio. Taking off that first time, I remember thinking, this thing climbs like a homesick angel. Engine, that 2,000 horsepower, it was incredible. But we still didn't know if we could fight in it. We were about to find out. At 25,000 feet over the North Sea, Hub Zemke scanned the horizon. Somewhere ahead, the Luftwaffe was waiting. The joke was about to be tested. April 8, 1943, 10:47 a.m. The 56th Fighter Group spots their first enemy aircraft. 12 Focke-Wulf 90s diving from above. Jerry Scutt's historian. That first engagement exposed the P-47's weakness immediately. In a turning fight, a dogfight, it couldn't match the German fighters. The few 190 could turn inside them, get on their tail. Several P-47s took hits. One went down. The 56th returned to England. One pilot lost. 0 German kills confirmed. The after-action report was damning. Aircraft too heavy for dogfighting, unsuitable for combat against W-190s. Hub Zemke had to find another way, or more pilots would die. For 3 weeks, the 56th Fighter Group flew missions. For 3 weeks, they achieved almost nothing. Pilots were frustrated. Command was losing faith, and the Luftwaffe was growing bolder. Robert S. Johnson. Those first weeks were hell. Every mission, we'd see German fighters, but we couldn't catch them. They'd dive away, or turn inside us, or climb away. The P-47 felt like we were flying a school bus against sports cars. Morale was terrible. Guys were requesting transfers. But Hub Zemke noticed something. Yes, the P-47 couldn't turn, but it could do something the German fighters couldn't. It could dive, faster than anything in the sky. And it could take punishment that would destroy other aircraft. Joshua Stoff, engineer. The P-47's weight was actually its secret weapon. Zemke just had to figure that out. In a dive, mass gives you acceleration. The P-47 could reach speeds over 500 mph in a dive. No German fighter could follow. And the structural strength, the thick wings, the armored fuselage, it could pull out of dives that would rip apart a Bf-109. May 4th, 1943. Hub Zemke called his pilots together. He'd developed new tactics. Instead of trying to turn with German fighters, they'd use altitude and speed. The boom and zoom, dive from above, attack, zoom back to altitude using the P-47's power. Dr. Richard Overy, historian Zemke's breakthrough was understanding that different aircraft required different tactics. The P-47 wasn't a Spitfire, shouldn't fight like one. It was a heavyweight boxer. One punch could end the fight. Stay high, stay fast, never get drawn into a turning battle. But tactics were only half the equation. The other half was firepower. 8.50 caliber machine guns, all synchronized to converge at 300 yards. If you hit an enemy aircraft in that convergence zone, the combined firepower was devastating. April 15th. The mission, escort B-17 bombers deep into Germany. It would be the 56th longest mission yet. And for Captain Walker Mahurin, it would be the day everything changed. Walker Bud, Mahurin, I saw them diving. 16, maybe 20 Bf-109s and 90s. They were coming for the bombers. This was it, everything we'd trained for. I called my wingman, pushed the throttle forward, and went to meet them. Walker Bud, Mahurin, his voice emotional, remembering. I'd never seen anything like it. The 109 just came apart, like I'd hit it with a sledgehammer. 3 seconds of firing, that's all it took. I suddenly understood what we'd been given. This wasn't a fighter, this was a destroyer. In that moment, Mahurin became the first P-47 ace. That day, the 56th Fighter Group shot down 11 German aircraft. They didn't lose a single pilot. The Luftwaffe had just met the real P-47 Thunderbolt. News of the April 15th mission traveled fast. In England, other P-47 units studied Zemke's tactics. In Washington, the Pentagon took notice. And in Germany, the Luftwaffe stopped laughing. Dr. Colin Heaton, historian. The German after-action reports from April 15th are fascinating. Pilots describe unexpectedly heavy firepowers and aircraft breaking apart under concentrated fire. Within weeks, Luftwaffe tactical briefings included specific warnings about the P-47. Avoid turning combat. Beware the dive attack. Never underestimate its weapons. The flying milk jug had teeth. And the Luftwaffe was about to find out just how sharp they were. June 26, 1943. Lieutenant Robert Johnson would prove that the P-47's toughness was as deadly as its firepower. Robert S. Johnson, archival audio. We were heading home, mission complete. I was relaxed. maybe too relaxed. Then suddenly, WWII cannon fire. A Focke-Wulf 190 had bounced me from above. I never saw him coming. 20mm cannon shells tore through his aircraft. His canopy was shattered. He was wounded in multiple places. His engine was failing. Any other fighter would have fallen apart in the air. Robert S. Johnson, voice shaking with emotion at the memory. I couldn't bail out. The canopy was jammed. I was stuck in a dying aircraft, 200 miles from England, bleeding, and the 190 was coming around for another pass. I thought I was dead. But the P-47, she kept flying. That's when I knew. Kartveli built this thing to bring us home. When Alexander Kartveli saw photos of Robert Johnson's P-47, he wept. Not because of the damage, but because his aircraft had done exactly what he'd designed it to do: bring the pilot home alive. Joshua Stoff, engineer Kartveli, told his team, "This is why we made it heavy. This is why we made it strong." Every ounce of weight that pilots complained about, it was armor, redundant systems, structural strength. The P-47 wasn't built to be beautiful. It was built to win and bring pilots home, and it did both better than any fighter in the war. By mid-1943, Republic Aviation couldn't build P-47s fast enough. Every fighter group wanted them. The joke had become the weapon of choice. Summer 1943. Luftwaffe High Command faced a crisis. Their loss rates against P-47 units were climbing. Their pilots were requesting new orders: avoid the Thunderbolt if possible. Dr. Colin Heaton, historian. We have German documents from August 1943 that specifically warn pilots about the P-47. They're told, don't dogfight it above 20,000 feet, don't let it dive on you from altitude, and most importantly, don't underestimate its firepower. One report says, a 3-second burst from a Thunderbolt is fatal to any of our aircraft. That's a complete reversal from 6 months earlier. Major Egan Mayer, the pilot who'd called the P-47 flying barrels, was shot down and killed by a P-47 on March 2, 1944. But even with the P-47's success, the air war over Germany was far from won. In fall 1943, bomber losses spiked again. The Luftwaffe threw everything at the bomber streams, and the P-47 had one critical limitation: range. Dr. Richard Overy, historian. This was the paradox of late 1943. The P-47 was winning every fight it was in, but it couldn't reach Berlin. The Luftwaffe learned to wait until the escorts turned back, then attack. The bombers needed protection all the way to target. The P-47 couldn't give it to them, yet. Republic Aviation worked frantically on a solution: drop tanks, external fuel tanks that could be jettisoned. If it worked, the P-47 could reach Berlin. If it didn't, the bloodshed would continue. March 4, 1944. The day the P-47 Thunderbolt would prove it could go anywhere, fight anyone, and win. Ari Skutz, historian. The March 4th mission to Berlin was symbolic and tactical. Symbolic, it showed the Luftwaffe that nowhere was safe anymore. Tactical, it protected bombers hitting the Nazi capital. But most importantly, it proved the P-47 could do something everyone said was impossible: fly 1,100 miles round trip and still have fuel to fight. Over the North Sea, pilots jettisoned their empty drop tanks. Now flying on internal fuel, they crossed into Germany, 400 miles to Berlin. The Luftwaffe was waiting. March 4, 1944, 12:14 p.m., over Berlin. The Luftwaffe threw 150 fighters into the air, Bf-29s, few W-190s, even experimental jets. They were defending their capital. The P-47s were outnumbered 3-1. Walker Budd, Mahurin. Berlin was chaos. Fighters everywhere, flak, bombers, smoke, contrails. But we weren't the scared kids flying P-47s for the first time anymore. We were hunters, and we had the best weapon in the sky. The 56th Fighter Group shot down 19 German aircraft over Berlin that day. They didn't lose a single P-47. The Luftwaffe had thrown everything at them and lost. The joke had just defended itself 400 miles into Germany. The war in the air had turned, but victory had a cost. That night, Not every chair in the mess hall was filled. Lieutenant James Peterson didn't return. His P-47 was last seen diving through cloud, chasing an enemy fighter, Johnson. Every victory had a cost. Every mission, you'd come back and count. Who made it, who didn't. The P-47 brought a lot of us home who wouldn't have survived in other aircraft. But it couldn't save everyone. War doesn't work that way. By war's end, 1,200 P-47 pilots would be killed in combat. They would shoot down 11,874 enemy aircraft, more than any other Allied fighter. The exchange rate told the story. For every P-47 lost, they destroyed 6 enemy aircraft. After Berlin, the P-47's legend grew. By summer 1944, they were everywhere, escorting bombers deep into Germany, attacking ground targets, dominating the skies over D-Day. Dr. Richard Overy, historian. By late 1944, the P-47 wasn't just winning air superiority, it was crushing the German military infrastructure. Their dual role as fighter and ground attacker made them uniquely valuable. The Luftwaffe couldn't stop them. The German army couldn't hide from them. The P-47 became ubiquitous, the sound of American air power. The flying milk jug had become a legend. But legends are built on the backs of the men who flew them. Colonel Hub Zemke's 56th Fighter Group, the Wolfpack, became the highest-scoring P-47 unit of the war, 674 confirmed kills. Zemke himself shot down 17 aircraft before being shot down over Germany in October 1944. After the war, he said, "I doubted the P-47. I was wrong. It saved my life more than once, and the lives of hundreds of my boys." Captain Walker Mahurin finished the war with 21 confirmed kills, the first P-47 ace. He flew in Korea and Vietnam. In 1998, at age 85, he attended a P-47 reunion. When asked about his time in the Thunderbolt, he said, "Every pilot who flew the P-47 owes his life to Alexander Kardveli. That man was a genius." Robert Johnson survived the war with 27 kills, second highest scoring P-47 pilot. He never forgot June 26, 1943, the day his P-47 brought him home with 200-plus holes. He kept a piece of the armor plate that saved his life. He died in 1998, age 78. At his funeral, P-47s flew the missing man formation. Alexander Kardveli never sought fame. He designed 3 legendary aircraft, the P-47, P-84, and F-105. But the P-47 was his masterpiece. In his papers, they found a note from 1942, when the P-47 was being criticized. They will understand when the shooting starts. Heinz Baer, Luftwaffe ace, archival interview, 1987. The P-47, we learned to respect it. Some called it the running bear, looked slow, but very dangerous. I lost good friends to the Thunderbolt. Its firepower was, pauses, unbelievable. 8 heavy machine guns. If they hit you, you were finished. We were told it was too heavy, too slow. We believed that for maybe 1 month. Then we learned, too late for many of us. German pilots, when interviewed after the war, universally respected the P-47. Many considered it the most dangerous Allied fighter, not the fastest, not the most maneuverable, but the most lethal. Today, fewer than 50 P-47s survive. They fly at air shows, museum pieces, living history. When one takes off, that sound, 2,000 horsepower, 8 machine guns, 12,500 pounds of American engineering, it's unmistakable. And for those who flew them, that sound meant survival. Quentin Anundsen, P-47 pilot. I'm 94 years old. 70 years since I flew the Jug. But I remember every flight like it was yesterday. That aircraft brought me home. Brought me home to marry my sweetheart, raise my kids, live this long life. When people ask what the P-47 meant to me, I tell them everything. It meant everything. The P-47 Thunderbolt's lesson transcends aviation history. Innovation often looks wrong at first. Genius is frequently dismissed. What others see as weakness, visionaries see as strength. The Germans saw weight. Kardveli saw armor and firepower. The pilots saw a truck. Zemke saw a destroyer. Perception versus reality. The difference won a war. April 15, 1943. Captain Walker Mahurin pressed the trigger. 8 guns roared. A Messerschmitt disintegrated. and everything changed. They called it the flying milk jug. Too heavy, too slow. A joke. But the joke destroyed 11,874 enemy aircraft, brought home thousands of pilots who wouldn't have survived in lesser machines, turned the tide of the air war over Europe. Sometimes what looks like a weakness is unstoppable firepower. Ari Skutz, historian, final words. The P-47 Thunderbolt saved the 8th Air Force, saved thousands of bomber crews, saved thousands of fighter pilots. And it did it by being exactly what it was designed to be: tough, powerful, and uncompromising. We owe a debt to the men who flew it, the man who designed it, and the aircraft itself.